Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this card is for you. So press the like button. You see, I bribe you. You see, I know how to make a deal. So anyway, so this is the summary for the day of 1085 for the 12th of February for the Ukraine war or the special military operation in Ukraine. So there is a lot of things happening surrounding the Ukraine war in terms of geopolitics. So do check out all those videos at DPA News and also on the main channel at Defense Politics Asia. So yeah, I have multiple channels in case you do not know. So check them out. And okay, so we're going to start off with the Kursk front first. Over at the Kursk front, the Russian forces, of course, continue their counteroffensive in the region. Over the western flank, we have multiple geolocations. Particularly, one of the major one is the Russians advancing south at Svidiklovo. So they are continuing the battle at Svidiklovo. This is ongoing. Then attack towards Lebedevka was mentioned. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, Nikolsky is also attacked. Ukrainian vehicles and troops was attacked by missile strike and FPV drones, I believe. Also missile strike. So the Russians are starting to use missile strikes on Ukrainian positions. Yeah, worrisome that the Russians have now starting to deploy more powerful weaponries. And of course, in the frame, we can see Kazakhstan Lognia getting shelled. So that's the western flank. We move on further up north. In the northern flank, we actually have nothing. Nikolsky already mentioned just now. There is mention of Kotsitsa, but that's about it. So far, there isn't any breakthroughs of sort, as well as the Ukrainian claim is not corroborated. Over in the Sudja region, Kazakhstan Lognia, as already mentioned, we have shelling reported in the usual places, all the rear positions where the Ukrainians are supplying and supporting the defense of Sudja. Shelling is reported at Oleshnya. Okay, use the rate. Oleshnya, Gogolevka, Gurubenskina, Zaleshenka, Sudja as well. I don't think this is an attack into Sudja because Sudja is a bit far from the front line. And Manovka was under attack. Kurilovka is also attacked over in part of the southern flank. So largely strategically, there's no change in terms of situation at Sudja. And over in the south, I mentioned Kurilovka, Gueva is also under attack. But largely, the strategic situation at the Kursk front remains the same. Over at the Kharkiv front, we have shelling being reported in the Sumy region at Yamne. That was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. They also along the way mentioned Zoloshev or Zoloskiv, as well as Veterinane. Veterinane is just next to the border, so this is potentially an attack by Russian troops into this region. Most likely this is a diversion, just to keep the Ukrainians guessing if there's any offensive coming in. So this is an attack and then the shelling like this. Then I think the rest, I don't think the Ukrainians mentioned anything about Kharkiv. So that's all. We move on to the Dvorichna Front. At the Dvorichna Front, Russian forces attacked in multiple locations. The Russian Defense Ministry mentioned Karyamka, Kukivka, Kindrashivka is mentioned by the Ukrainians, and at Dvorichna as well. So Karyamka, of course, is the one that is more interesting because the Russians could potentially create a bridgehead or bridgehead around here. They already have a small one in the south of Topoli, so that is something that is currently happening. Over in the Dvorichna, there is Dvorichna side of the things. Russian forces are still fighting in the Battle of Dvorichna despite the previous claim by the Russian Defense Ministry that they have captured this. But the Russian still mentioned about hitting Ukrainian forces near Dvorichna. Kukivka was actually mentioned as well, so this could potentially be the Russians pushing out at Kukivka. So if we combine the two, maybe the Russians are trying to expand outwards. So they're still fighting in the region of Dvorichna while they're actually pushing towards Kukivka. So that is also a possibility. The way how you can interpret the information. So over at Kindrashivka, the Ukrainians have been talking about this. these 3 days already, 3 straight days that the Russians have been attacking Kindrashivka. So let's see how this continue to play out, and we move into the Kupiansk front. At the Kupiansk front, Petropavlivka was mentioned by both sides. There was fighting over there, Stepova Novoselivka, by the Ukrainians, Pischane as well, and Novoossenove. So all these are Ukrainians saying that the Russians are attacking. So there seems like an slight uptick of the Russian operation in the southern part of the Kupiansk front. So, but that's all. Nothing particularly special for now. Over in the Borova front, we have the usual. The whole line is under attack with Zarizove, Lozova, Zeleny High, Kopanki, and Sverdiklovove. So that's about it. Previously, we usually have Novoyehorivka being mentioned. This time around, we have Sverdokhlibove, which is last time it was mentioned on the 26th. This time around, it was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. The other name was Sverdlovka. So Sverdlovka, Sverdokhlibove. Yeah, that doesn't sound exactly the same. So that's it from Borova front. We move into the northern flank of the Liman front. In this area here, we have some major frontline changes, basically in the south, at where the Russian forces have secured the southern part of Makiivka. There is still fighting at Makiivka itself. Fighting is now moving towards Novomikhailivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. The Deep State is the one that mapped the changes at Makiivka, and fighting is also mentioned at Novolyubivka, which is mentioned by the Ukrainians. So definitely the Russians are making some major. I forgot. I pressed the wrong button. Major push in this direction. But yeah, let's wait and see. So far, the Ukrainians are still resisting pretty well. Over at the southern flank of the Liman front, we have fighting reported at Koloziazy, Yampolevka, as well as Torske. Shelling is reported at Yampil, so by the Russian Defense Ministry. So Koloziazy is mentioned by the Ukrainians, Yampolevka by the Ukrainians, and the other two in the south is by the Russians. So let's continue to wait for more changes. So far, no changes is mentioned. Over at the Sivers front, Krychorivka was mentioned, probably an attack along the river. I'm not sure. Fighting is reported at Bilohorivka, and fighting is reported at Verkhovno-Kanyamsky. The information is coming from the Ukrainians. But this frontline change is already mentioned, so don't bother about that. I left it for frontline changes report. So we move into the Bakhmut front. In the northern flank of the Bakhmut front, we have the mention of Vasyukivka by the Ukrainians. They also mentioned Chasivya, which also mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. So there's these attacks, but yeah, it went pretty quiet again, the front line. So all the excitement about Orikovo, Vasilevka, Zeleniansky, Makove, Mahiske, skirmishes. So we'll move to the southern flank. There is a few very interesting names being mentioned. Other than the usual at Priteshny, there is a mention of Ivanopilia, as well as what's the name? Alexandro Shutine. So these not sure how to interpret this. Probably just shelling reports. The mention is by the Russian Defense Ministry, so most likely it's just some shelling into the rear positions around this area here while the Russians are pushing. So these are probably to weaken the potential reinforcement that is heading towards the Torex front, potentially. So over at the Torex front itself, we have the mention of Torex and Skibinivka. Skibinivka is mentioned by both sides, but Torex still remains to be only mentioned by the Ukrainians, as the Russians already claim that they have captured it. At Skibinivka, there is a frontline update based on the Russian mapping. They straightened the front line around Skibinivka, claiming further advance around this area here. The Ukrainians leaving just one street left before Skibinivka will be declared captured by the Russian side. So that's all from the Torex. We move on to the northern flank of the Pokrov front, and in this sector, the Russian mapping have mapped a lot more captures around in this area here, particularly moving significantly towards Zelenopole, potentially capturing Baranivka as well as taking most of Vodyane Druhi in this massive advancement based on their mapping. So this is not yet corroborated by the Ukrainian side just yet, so stay tuned. The Russians still are attacking Melanivka and Yelizavetivka. Melanivka was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. They used another name for this place called Ulyanovka. And then Yelizavetivka was mentioned by the Ukrainians. So this is a pretty significant frontline change, but however, this is just a Russian claim, so we have to take this with a pinch of salt. Moving into the Minokhrad sector. At the Minokhrad sector, only Promium was mentioned by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and as well as Pokrov by the Russian Defense Ministry. Pretty quiet in this front line, although this is usually a very static front line, so don't expect too much from this sector. And over at the Pokrov sector, there are some major things. Grishine was mentioned, or Grishiny was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. Grishino, sorry, the Russian name is Grishino. In Ukrainian is Grishine. So that was mentioned. Otherwise, so that was in that direction. Fighting is still reported at Kotline, Zverove. Towards Pokrov is already mentioned. Udashne, Uzbenivka, and Novo Alexandrivka. Although I have to say the Novo Alexandrivka one is a bit suspicious. First, the Novo Alexandrivka was mentioned directly by the Russians, but the Ukrainians mentioned Alexandrivka instead of Novo Alexandrivka. There is actually no Alexandrivka in this front line, so I suppose that they actually wrote wrong. So the Ukrainians are counterattacking over at Kotline. They are trying to push back the Russians. They know the danger that I mentioned before about them cutting all the way up north, killing off the other route, the other highway. The Ukrainians are attacking Pischane. Russian forces are still being geolocated in the in this mining zone. So in this area here, in the mining area, the Russians are still being geolocated here, whereas the Ukrainians are still on the offensive in this sector. So that is noted. As mentioned, this highway is significant. This highway, so the Russians are trying to go up and cut it off. So the Ukrainians are doing their best to prevent this from happening, and this has been pretty successful from the Ukrainian side, as the Kotline have not seen the frontline change for a very, very long time. So we move on to the southern flank of the Pokrov front. We have fighting reported at Nedievka and Zaporizhia. The Zaporizhia one was mentioned by the Ukrainian OSIN, Deep State UA. They wrote a lot about it, and yeah, I'm lazy to read it to you. It's not important. Like, it's the same story for any other town, so it doesn't really matter per se. Over at in the west of Slovianka, Russian forces are pushing. According to the Russian mapping, the entire front line have straightened along the highway south of Yasinove. So you can take this with a pinch of salt, because this is a Russian claim. It stretches all the way down to Andriivka. So, but I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, this is logical. So, but this is a claim, so it is what it is. Over in the Andriivka front, we have some major updates. So the Russian forces are still fighting in the Battle of Andriivka. I will talk about the mapping a little bit. And Shevchenko was mentioned as well. Fighting is reported at Dashne. Some major frontline changes in the Ulakli salient. Fighting is reported at Ulakli as well as Constantinople. So one by one, 3 different sectors that we need to break down a little bit. Over Andriivka, the Ukrainians continue their code mapping, where now they say that this entire road all the way almost to the end of the settlement at Andriivka is under Russian control. If the road is under the Russian control, how the Ukrainians are going to hold anything in the south is beyond my understanding. In the north is still more plausible because of the entrenchments in the north, but still this looks very ridiculous, because why the Ukrainians don't just pincer it and cut it off and then eliminate the encirclement? Clearly they aren't in that condition to do this thing. They could have just cut it here as well. Then they can cut it off and castrate the Russian forces here, but they don't. So So yeah, I think they because this looks so pathetic, right? This looks so pathetic. No, they it's like they pity them, so they didn't just chop it off, and gender change them, because no, gender changing is, yes, last year's thing. No, nobody do that anymore. Donald Trump already claimed there's only two genders. Ukrainian and Russian. So and over at Shevchenko, Ukrainians continue to mention that the Russian forces, Ukrainians still have a presence around here, with the claim that the Russians have taken half of this entrenchment. The fighting at Shevchenko is mentioned only by the Ukrainian side. Deep State UA and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry are mentioning Shevchenko, not the Russians. The Russians are not talking about Shevchenko. So yeah, so just take it the way you want it. Over in the Ulakli salient, there is some major developments. Other than the Deep State UA mentioning Ukrainians continue to lose positions within Dvorichna, which is kind of funny, because according to the Russians, it's already fully captured on the 6th of February. So 1 week, 2 weeks already, almost 1 week, 1 week already. And yeah, the Ukrainians are still talking about battles inside it, so not sure who is lying here. But in terms of geolocation, the Russian forces have indeed pushed out from the southwest of Dvorichna, and they have taken quite a bit of grounds. Ukrainian forces geolocated at this very unholy position are noted to be retreating. Yeah, that's horrible. I did mention in the Frontline Changes report, conclusions, that this is a horrible place to be deployed to. Like now, you took a huge risk to be deployed to these trench lines, and then now you need to run all the way back. Yeah, bad situation. Over in the Velika Novosilka front, we have shelling reported at Koma. Fighting is reported at Novo Ocharituvate, Vremivka, Bulatske, Vinipole, Rivnopil, Novopil, and Zelenipole. So the Russians are doing basically a all-out frontal push. As you can see, if I push up a bit, it's a bit, so no, Koma is not important. So yeah, you can see it's pretty much a full frontal, full front attack. I should use another color. Shucks. Forget it. I pressed the wrong button and I can't get it back. So there is some frontline changes in this sector in the west of Remivka, where the Russian forces taking another 2-3 lines. Clearly very unbalanced, these two boops. But anyway, there's a third boop here, because this is already geolocated previously. So so together, this is a gang sign. No, this is actually, never mind. I run out of jokes. So yeah, I need to pay my joke tax. So that's it for this area here. The information is coming from the Russians and the Ukrainians largely. So it is a mix of Russian and Ukrainian information. So yeah, so together it just looks like a massive frontline attack. Yeah, so very, very disturbing. So anyway, that's it from this front line. Over at the Zaporizhia front, we have multiple reports of fighting all over the place. Although I have to say the Ukrainian reports is a little weird. They say that the Huyaipole direction, there is fighting in the area of Kamyamske. There is no Kamyamske here. So I'm not sure what they're talking about. Kamyamske is here. This is Kamyamske. So, but this is not at the Huyaipole sector. So I'm not sure what they're talking about. It's very weird. And then after that, they mentioned about Petikaki. They say it's at Orikhiv region, but it's actually in the Kamyamske region. But they want to say Orikhiv. I mean, I can stretch it for them. No, yeah, just so weird. But anyway, the Russians did mention a lot of places like Malatomashka. They mentioned Orikhiv. They mentioned Petikaki also, as well as Shabaki around here. So all in all, we have multiple reports of fighting in all these various directions. It does look a bit much of arrows for Zaporizhia. Usually we don't have this many. So let's wait and see. No, I don't think this is a full-fledged offensive just yet. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces getting struck by I think this is the glide bomb. So that's about it. So geolocation of Ukrainian forces also over just on this tree line, which is off Kayamsky. This also does not change any front line changes for us. This basically means that the Ukrainians are indeed in this position. So fighting continues. Very interesting. I wonder if this will turn out to be something bigger. There is some rumors about the possibility that this might actually be a Russian offensive that has been brewing for a long time, according to my sources. But I doubt so. So. Anyway, that's it from the Dvorichna Front, and we move into the Kursk Sun. So you know this is Kursk, like this Kursk. There is the Kursk Sun, no Kursk Sun. So Kherson, Kherson. At the Kherson front, the Russian forces are fighting in the region of Pridniprovsk. So fighting probably around this sector, and that's about it. So because Russian, when they say Pridniprovsk, usually it's shelling, but yeah, but the front line is nearer nowadays. And also there's some interesting geolocations here. There is a ground strike hitting Stara Bodanivka in the north. So let's see what they hit. This look very military-ish. So yeah, this looks like a military-ish place. They see these military vehicles. This looks probably like an air defense site, you know. So the ground drone was trying to hit something around here. And yeah, that's about it. There's some other geolocations I did not put into the mapping because I don't care. I don't care about the strikes in the rear in these deep positions because it doesn't really matter. What I care about is the frontline changes. This one in Sumy, yeah, this one in Sumy is also another ground strike. Like in just southeast of Sumy in the forest. What did they hit again? Well, it's actually pretty accurate. Yeah, so but anyway, that's it. So thank you for watching. Press the like button, subscribe. This is the summary for the day of 1085 for the 12th of February. Check out this stuff about the Ukraine war, and I think you will probably enjoy it. These things will have a big difference, make a big difference on the Ukraine war. And see you guys. Bye.